it's your host, Kendra from Allison+Sports and fellow colleague Brian Burkowski, and today is the day after the All-Star game, which we all know is our dead day. So no one's playing today from a Big Four team, leaving many of us to kind of question, what the broader sports landscape looks like within a city, where San Diego and the Padres are the only Big Four team left in town. But the truth is far from that, and we're here today to chat about it. So we are joined by Nathan Kopp, who is the Director of Sports San Diego. Nate, first of all, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us. But how about we get started with the obvious and answer the question. Let's talk about Sports San Diego, number one, and number two, where do you fit in within this landscape and, the current situation within San Diego and its sports teams?
Yeah, thanks for having me today. I'm excited to talk about what we're doing in Sports San Diego. So, Sports San Diego is the sports commission for our destination. So, we just launched about 5 months ago in February, and our job is to drive visitation and economic development to our destination to support the tourism and hospitality industries, which is so important and crucial for our economy after the last 2 years that we just had. So, we do this by recruiting, supporting, and hosting sports events. So, our relationship with each event is different. I like to use sports analogies. So sometimes we're the point guard or quarterback and really driving that event towards San Diego. And other times we're just a role player and we fit into the bigger scheme. We wear a lot of different hats, and every event that we touch is different. But that's in kind of a nutshell who we are.
And Nate, I remember, it was
Sounds
what, about
really
five and a half years ago when the Chargers left San Diego. There was talk about, there goes the sports landscape in San Diego. But there's so much going on in this market. Particularly you look at a dead day like today across a number of sports. I mean, you look at not just professional sports, but you look at the Olympic individual sports. I mean, it's a great scene right now in San Diego. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I totally agree. And we've seen a lot of growth actually over the last 7 years, which is surprising to some people. So I think it really started with the San Diego Gulls when they came back to San Diego in 2015. They led the league in attendance in 17-18 and 18-19. And then the next year, you saw the San Diego Legion launch in Major League Rugby, the San Diego Seals launched in the National Lacrosse League, and the San Diego Loyal in USL. They played one game before the pandemic in 2020, and now they're back in action here in 22. And most recently, we have the San Diego Wave FC. They're in their inaugural season in the National Women's Soccer League. And they're in first place in the standings right now, which is super exciting. They have Alex Morgan, which is obviously one of the best women's soccer players in the entire world. And all of this is really in addition to the Padres. So the Padres have made major investments in their team in the last couple seasons, and they're tracking to break their attendance record in 2022, which is super exciting. So, San Diego has a lot of exciting things on the professional front and on the collegiate side as well. Point Loma moved from NAIA to NCAA D2 a couple years back, and UCSD moved from D2 to D1. So now we have three major D1 programs in San Diego. So San Diego is cranking, and there's a lot of activity and excitement here in the sports industry, and there's a lot more going on than just the Big Four.
And I think the market and San Diego, a location like San Diego, lends itself also to. It's a tremendous location for events, for large events. I mean, you look at San Diego hosted the very first Carrier Classic when North Carolina played Michigan State on an aircraft carrier in San Diego Bay. It was the birthplace for those who are big in the running community. The very first rock and roll marathon was held here in San Diego, and Nate, things like the San Diego Surf Cup that probably a lot of people aren't familiar with. But talk a little bit about that event in terms of just the size and the scale and the number of people it brings into the market.
Yeah, those are all great events and some of my favorite memories of San Diego. The first Carrier Classic, I was a senior in college at the time in Michigan, and I remember watching Michigan State come out to San Diego, and it was one of my first actually just understandings of what San Diego was. I was like, wow, that looks like a pretty incredible place. And fast forward a few months later, I was moving here for my first job. So events like that it was ESPN's, I think, most watched regular season college basketball game in a decade. So events like that definitely have an impact, and we're working on sports at all levels. So obviously that's on the collegiate side. Surf Cup, which you mentioned, they're a leader in the youth soccer market across the country. So Surf Cup, their annual tournament brings in over 1,000 teams from across the country. So you imagine the impact on hotels and restaurants and tourist attractions from having 1,000 youth soccer teams coming in and visiting San Diego. And many of those families turn it into their family vacation for the year. So they're bringing in not just mom and dad, but grandma, grandpa, siblings, and all of them are getting to experience San Diego sometimes for the first time. And we always like to leave a good impression, so they want to come back to San Diego. And we have so much to do here, which is the exciting part, from our attractions to our restaurants and even our natural beauty at Torrey Pines and Sunset Cliffs. That all of these are great ways to just showcase San Diego and how great of a destination it is.
And that's a great way for markets that don't necessarily have all of the big four sports to really, kind of elevate sort of brand awareness of the market through sports. I mean, you look at what Oklahoma City has done with the women's softball College World Series, or Omaha on the men's baseball side, those singular, annual events that really kind of, make a mark for that community. So increasingly, I think there are a lot of opportunities for local markets to really kind of own big events and big singular events. And part of what's driving that too is just the way sports consumers are accessing information and content. It's no longer, you don't no longer always need the big, CBS, NBC, ESPN broadcasting distribution channel. With digital platforms, there are a lot more ways now for sports, Olympic level sports, to reach a lot of consumers. So there are a lot of opportunities for companies and brands to engage with those sports and those events as well.
That kind of reminds me, speaking of digital advertising and marketing and stuff like that, have you guys seen, consumers going to TikTok, maybe looking up things to do in San Diego and relating it back to the sports team? How are you guys really getting the word out there about Sports San Diego?
Yeah, I mean, I think naturally through our own channels is the main way we're getting the word out about it. But, San Diego is a place there, we have no shortage of events that want to come here. So for us, it's really the prospecting and figure out, which events are right for San Diego. With our weather being perfect year round, for an outdoor event organizer, you don't really have to plan for a contingency because San Diego always has great weather. That's normally not our struggle. I think for us, it's really a poker game. So we have to play the hand that we have with these events that are looking to come to San Diego. And it starts with venues. So we look at venues first. And if we have a venue for whatever event is looking to come here, then we normally get into the rest of the questions and the dialogue. We're very excited for Snapdragon Stadium to be coming online here in September. We've already worked with them on booking a number of events. They'll be hosting the World Lacrosse Championships in 2023. And we're also bidding on the Rugby World Cup in 2031 and on the women's side 2033. So those are the biggest events in those respective sports in the entire world. The Rugby World Cup is actually the third largest event in the world behind the Olympics and the Soccer World Cup, which will also be coming to the U.S. in 26.
Wow.
So there's a lot of exciting things coming here, and I don't think our challenge is getting the word out about how great San Diego is. I think our challenge is always finding the right venues and the right fits for the events that we want to bring here.
Yeah, let's go back to Brian's topic of just what this opportunity looks like for brands in general and how they can get involved in the sports scene.
Yeah, I mean, I think you always hear the measuring stick of Super Bowl commercials. You always get the story about the week before the Super Bowl, where I think this year is like 6.5 million for a 30-second spot in the Super Bowl on NBC. And I hope that's not a barrier to entry for brands, because as we're talking about it, there are a lot of sports events out there on multiple levels that touch different demographics and have different eyeballs on them. So I think it's important for brands to really understand who their target audience is and finding events that align with those brands. We touch probably 50 different events a year in all different sports and all different levels. So, depending on what brand you are, I think, you don't want to look at just the Super Bowl. There are lots of different other opportunities out there. And I think that's an important part of the business to make sure that these brands that are spending money in sports are getting an ROI for it too, and that they're targeting the right audiences.
A lot of times it's been said about San Diego that it's more difficult for professional sports teams to be successful here because there's so much else to do. But I think what we're seeing is all of the sports that are those other things for people to do are the ones that are now kind of, really elevating and growing from an event standpoint, a marketing standpoint.
Yeah, you're completely right, Brian. We look at the Olympic platform a lot in terms of where should we be spending our kind of future investments of time and resources, and you look at which sports have been added to the Olympics recently. So BMX was added to the Olympics in 2008, and we actually hosted the BMX Olympic trials at the Chula Vista Training Center in Southern San Diego in 2008, 12, and 16. And then you look more recently. So rugby sevens was added to the Olympic platform in 2016. And in 2020, you had skateboarding, surfing, and climbing all added to the Olympics. And what this means is for a sport to be added to the Olympics, on the men's side, they have to be practiced on 4 different continents and by at least 75 different countries. So that is showing that these action sports that kind of grew up in Southern California and grew up in San Diego, they're very widespread and mainstream now. And we're looking at that for the future perspective. It's very exciting for us because a lot of these athletes live in San Diego, they train in San Diego, and as these sports kind of grow up and are in the Olympics now, they're going to want to do their international championships here, their national championships, their Olympic qualifiers. And that's where we're spending a lot of our time and resources focusing on that of, what are the sports of tomorrow? And as we talk about this diversified, sports landscape, it's really exciting for those sports to be in the Olympics.
Yeah, Nate, thank you so much. I think we've just learned so much today. A city can have an absolute major impact as somebody who has so much more outside of a Big Four. So we really appreciate you being here with us today, and thank you so much for the information, and we look forward to talking to you soon. Allison+Sports is grounded in an earn-first media relations approach that leverages deep relationships and works collaboratively with brands' existing marketing operations to drive communications value from existing and planned sports sponsorships, athlete and celebrity endorsements, and other marketing relationships. Our regular podcasts cover the world of sports through the lens of marketing and brand engagement. Thanks for watching.